Okay, so if you got a hand sketch of your floor plan, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can turn it into a CAD drawing, even if you've had no experience before. So for this video, we're going to go ahead and use Rayon.design. This is a very easy, affordable, and accessible tool because it is on the web and it is very beginner friendly. So first of all, let's say that you have a hand drawing, something like this, which I'm just going to attach it on the screen right now. And in order to actually get this right from the first go, what we want to do is, first of all, I want to make sure that the rotation on this is actually at 90 degrees instead of in a weird angle as it is right now. So what I will do is I will start a line from here, and then I will hold the shift key. And basically the shift key ensures that we are drawing in a 90-degree angle, and then we'll click on the other side. And now what we can do is I'm going to have this selected, and right here at the editing tools, I'm going to go ahead and use the rotate tool. I'm going to click once over here and then another time for the angle which is existing and where we want this angled, and now this is a lot better. Then next up, before we actually get started to draw, is that we do want to make sure that this is in the correct scale. That way, if we are drawing something, let's say for 10 feet in real life, this actually is 10 feet in our drawing as well. So in order to do that, you can see that in this bedroom, the dimensions are 10 by 12. So in that case, I am going to go ahead and if for some reason it seems like the 10 in this is on this side because this side seems shorter by eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the line tool, and then for the 10 feet, instead of actually using the meters as I'm doing right now, I can use the length unit in feet as well. By the way, no matter what kind of system you use for measurements, this is very easy for you to follow. So what I will do is I will go ahead and I will type in 10 feet and click enter. And then this is how large this room should be in order to be in the correct scale. Now, let's go to these editing tools. I'm going to go ahead and use the scale tool. I will click once for the starting point and then once for the end point of the tool, and then we'll make this a lot larger, something just like this. Next up, let's go ahead and use the wall tool. The wall tool is located right here in this toolbar, or we can use the W key. I'm going to go ahead and just click it over here. We can click once, and as you can see right now, it's in the wrong alignment. However, we can change the alignment over here. We can use the S key for the toggle. If I click there, you can see that now it is on the correct alignment. But I also can change its size. For example, 0.82 seems to be the correct one in this instance. And then we can also go ahead and draw upwards. As you can see, this is not in the correct angle as well because this was hand drawn. Obviously, you can expect errors like this, nothing to worry about. And then we can just continue and draw only the exterior walls first. So we can just go over here, over on this side, and then close it off right here and then click done. Now you can see that we have this little extra part out there. We do not need that. We can just drag and drop this to be aligned with the whole walls. So now that we have drawn the exterior walls first, what I want you to do in order to be a lot more organized and to have it a lot easier to explore the file, even later on when we want to make edits, we can go over here at layers, and then we can add a new layer group, and then we can type in right here something like exterior walls. And then we can go at the default layer, which is the existing ones, which comes with the canvas of Rayon. We can select all of the walls that we drew, and then we can drag and drop them right onto our exterior walls layer. And now we can select them a lot easier just by doing this. And then obviously we can also turn these off or on. We can lock them all in one click. It's just a lot easier to manage all of the assets like this. And then we can go ahead and obviously do the same thing with interior walls as well. So we can add a new layer. We can call this interior walls. We can keep this selected. Let's use the wall tool. These ones seem to be just a little bit thinner. So something like this. We can draw this all the way up to the end. And then we can draw these other two ones. So starting from over here to this side. And then let's go over on the other side as well. So we can use the wall tool. You can start from here. Let's change the alignment to something like this. And then over on this side as well, let's start it from over here too. Okay, perfect. So this is what we have here. And then we also can add this other wall as well. As you can see now, this is a lot more organized because we have the interior walls in one layer and then we exterior walls in another layer as well. So we can turn this off and on too. Cool, so we have the exterior walls, we have the interior walls. What we can do next is that we're going to go ahead and add the openings like the doors and windows. So we're going to go ahead and click on the opening here. We can go to libraries, and as you can see, we have a bunch of different type of openings that we can choose right from the get-go. And if you scroll downwards, we can choose, for example, a European door, I guess something like this. We can click select, and then we can very easily apply it onto the wall. Obviously, you can just click in for as a placeholder, and then we can also change its alignment. So probably on this side, let's select this. Let's make this a little bit larger. And just for it to look up, I guess, in the correct ratio, we can increase it in size for something like this as well. Now, let's drag and drop it to over here. And then let's use another opening just like this. Let's increase this in size as well. Now let's use another opening for the toilet and bathroom. And then we have two more doors that we can use this to. Cool. So now we have added all the doors. And then for the doors as well, what we can do is we can add a new layer for these. We can type in doors. Let's select all of the door objects. We can add these in a separate layer as well. Let's add a new one for windows too. Now, in order for windows, in order to actually trace them, you can see that once you add the walls, they are not very visible in our reference image of the hand-drawn floor plan. So what we do in instances like this, we basically go ahead and we select the exterior walls, and then we can also lower their opacity. So right here on the right side, you can edit a bunch of things, which we're not going to go through all of them right now. But we can go at fill, and then this is basically the color of the walls, and then we can basically just lower its opacity a tiny bit. So something like this. And I can see that all of the windows are visible. And we can do this pretty quickly. If you go back to openings, instead of having a door selected here as an active block, we can just click inside, we can go to libraries, and then we can go to EU windows. And then we can basically choose, for example, I don't know, something like this. Let's say an on-in window. Let's select this, and then let's place it over here on the outside. And then let's increase it in size to something like this. So this would be one of them. Now let's use the Alt key, and then let's let's copy this, let's paste it, and then we can drag and drop it right to this wall as well. Let's copy this, let's paste it. We can drag and drop it to this wall as well. Let's get a little bit closer. Let's use the Alt. Let's copy this, let's paste it once again, and then we can place it over on this wall. Let's go to the openings once again. Let's place another window right here. So basically we're just tracing along. Pretty easy and pretty self-explanatory. Let's place another one over here. Let's drag and drop this on this side, and then we can probably just go ahead and then while using the Alt key, we can duplicate this in the other side of the opening. So this is how you can basically trace the easy raw parts, so the doors, the windows, and everything else. Now, next up, what we can do is that we can go ahead and add more furniture and add context to everything around here. So for example, we can go here at the blocks in Rayon, and this is one of the coolest parts about Rayon, which I love, which is the large library of assets that it has. So for example, we can go ahead and type in couch, or let's say L couch. So we can just probably choose this one, and then we can place it right here on this living room. And then we can go ahead and type in TV, and we can add, for example, some sort of TV entertainment stand. So we can basically rotate it over here, and this would be our mini living room. We can obviously also add some sort of carpet here. So let's just choose this one. We can rotate it and make it a lot smaller. And at the same time, you can also, so as you can see now, it seems like it's on top of the couch. In order to change that, we can go add the layers. Once again, let's go and add a furniture layer. And now it's very easy for us because we can just use the carpet, put it on top, put the L-shaped sofa, all of these in the furniture tag. And since the carpet now is downward, or like, I guess, behind the L-shaped sofa and the tags. Now you can see that it's not on top of the carpet. Maybe we can make this just a tiny bit bigger as well, something like this, and then we can go ahead at the blocks and type in a round coffee table. So let's drag and drop it just like this. Cool. So this is right here. Then what I'll do is that I will go here and type in bed, and this would help us with the bedroom. Once again, we can just go ahead and use a double bed. Let's rotate it over here. We can leave it like this, and then we can go ahead and add a wardrobe here as well. So for example, we can choose something like this. Let's go ahead and rotate it at 90 degrees. And then let's just make this a bit smaller. Okay, perfect. So now next up, we can go to bedroom. And let's scroll downwards. So this would be a double bedroom. We can just get all of these assets. Basically, we can just make this a bit smaller. We can take this baby bed off completely. Let's put this right here. And then we can also choose the wardrobe. Let's rotate it and put it on this corner. Let's move this just a bit downwards. Let's make this bed a bit smaller. And then we can also go ahead here at the blocks. We can type in nightstand. Let's click enter, and then basically we can add the nightstands for both of these bedrooms. So one of them would be right here. Let's move this a bit downwards. And then let's use the Alt key for the other side. And then, for example, let's just choose a different type of nightstand just to add a bit more variety. So for example, a round one for the other bedroom. Okay, cool. So now we have furnished these two bedrooms. Next up, let's add the dining and the kitchen. So for example, we can do a small dining room here. We can go at the blocks, we can type in dining. Let's go ahead and in this instance, let's just choose this basic one. We can add the dining room right here. We can also just delete this chair completely. And then we can go ahead and type in kitchen. Let's find a very small one because we do not have space for a bigger one here. So let's just scroll downwards and try to find something that matches. So for example, I can drag and drop this kitchen, which is a lot bigger than what actually fits here. But we can also go inside, double click on it, and then do some edits. So for example, we can take this part off. We can take, I guess, this part off. We can put this in the corner. We can select these two as well. We can put this right here too. And then we can also select the fridge, make it a bit smaller, and then place it right here. So this would kind of be our little kitchen here. And then next up is the toilet and bathroom. Basically, we can go ahead and type in bathtub. We can drag and drop this onto our bathroom. Let's rotate it for something like this. Let's make it a bit smaller. Let's go ahead and type in toilet. Let's drag and drop this over here. And then we can go ahead and choose a basin real quick. So for example, let's scroll downwards, or maybe we can type in sink for more options. So we can probably choose this one. We can drag and drop it just like this. And then this would be all of our furniture added from what I can see. Now, next up, what we will do is we will go ahead and stylize. However, before we actually stylize it, I want to go ahead and add zones. And basically, zones are ways to tag certain areas with a certain name. It calculates the area automatically. And on top of that, we can add a hatch. So some sort of texture that actually uses a PNG or a vector to stylize the flooring of certain areas. So for example, we can go ahead and do zones. We can add a zone over here. We can add another zone right there. So this is how we would add zones. This would be another zone right here. Now this other part we can add manually. This means that we can add 1 point on this corner, another one over here, another one over here, and then this would be our living room. Then we can add another one by clicking a point over here, and then this would be, I guess, our hall. And then we can use the zone finally for the kitchen and the dining room. Let's go ahead and stylize this and make it look a lot prettier and more understandable, even for people who are not very fluent in terms of architecture drawing. So first of all, what I will do is that I will go back to layers, and then I will turn the back layer, the reference image, completely off. And now we have some sort of drawing. However, we can make this look a lot prettier. First thing that I will do is that I will name these correctly. So this would be our living room. This would be our bathroom. This would be kitchen and dining. This would be, I guess, bedroom 1. And then this would be bedroom 2. And then we can select all of these texts, and then we can make these a bit bigger. So for example, 0.8. or maybe even 0.67, which might fit a bit better. And then we can also name this hall. So this would be the hallway. And now let's select all of these. So all of these other ones will have one texture, and then this one will be with tiles. For these one, we'll add some sort of wooden flooring. As you can see here in styles, this is the area that we can edit the way that the zones appear. So instead of just looking plain gray, we can add over here at the hatches, and then we can go at the pattern. And then if we scroll downwards, you can see that we have some options, and we can, for example, choose this herringbone as the option. We can add a background. The background, for example, can be some sort of darker brown. And then what we can also do is that we can make the stroke, so the black lines a lot softer. So for example, something like this, or we can make it brown as well, but another shade of brown. So for example, we can do it exactly similar to what we have here. However, one thing that you're noticing is that these textures are now on top of everything, and the furniture is not visible anymore. To change that, we can add a new layer, and we can type in zones. And now inside of this zones layer, we can basically choose all of these, put this in the zones layer, and now we can put the zones layer behind all of these, right? So this is how we can add this sort of texture. So let's just select these one by one. And then let's go ahead and take off the stroke completely for these, so that these can look a bit more seamless. And then finally, for this one, what I will do is that I will put basically all of the text in an area which is more readable, and even for this one. And then over here, we will add tiles. So we can go to hatch. This is square tiles. Let's add something like this. And then the stroke, let's just make it just like we've added here. Cool. So now we have some sort of floor texture, some sort of bathroom flooring texture as well. Something else that we can do is that I definitely want to have the walls, I guess, in a darker color. So maybe a darker gray. In that instance, we can go here at exterior walls. We can choose all of the walls. And then we can go to interior walls as well. But let's select all of the interior walls. And then at the fill, what we can do is let's make the opacity all the way high. And then let's make this something like this, which seems a bit harsh because also the flooring is a bit dark. So we can leave it something like this. Or if you want to, we can go for a more, I guess, braver color. So we can test things out. We can go for a darker brown even for the walls. If we want to keep the theme similar like this, or we can go, for example, for some sort of a blue, which simulates the, I guess, the blueprint color. But I don't want to play too much around and take risks with things not looking nice. And I will just keep it at this sort of gray. Cool. And then next up, what I want to do is I'm going to go and click 2 times inside the door, and I want this arc to be a bit thicker. So something like this, that way it is a bit more visible. Now, in terms of stylizing it, there is one more thing that I would want to do, which is adding shadows. We can go over here, add the polyline, and then let's just click once on this side. We can add the shadows in some sort of angle, so something like this. And then as we come back, I want to come back over on this angle, so we cover these areas of the openings as well. And then we can add a fill in this. We can go, for example, on something like this gray, but we can also make it a bit lower in terms of opacity and remove the stroke completely. So something like this would work well in terms of stylizing it. And then I'm going to show you as well how we can add dimensions, because those are needed in case you're going to share this with contractors or I don't know, any type of stakeholders for your project. So in that instance, you can go ahead and use the dimensions right here. You can click once in one end and another time for the other end, for example, to measure this wall. And then if you have multiple openings, which you want to, let's say, measure all of them, if you click on dimensions and then you click once again on this option as a toggle, for example, for chained, you can go ahead and click once over here. You can click once over here, and then you can basically continue to add new dimensions without having to choose the option over and over again. So I'm going to show you how we can edit these once again in order to make the styling look a bit easier to read and more architectural-like. So I'm going to click done. And then this, let's just move this a bit backwards. And then what I will do is I'm going to go ahead and choose the text. Let's make it something like this. Maybe some sort of red, maybe some sort of bluish, maybe a bit more vibrant. And then for these ends, let's add these two, I guess, slashes. Let's make this a bit bigger, 0.2. And then this is 0.2 as well. And then this is how we can basically stylize it a bit more. What I would want to do here as well is let's just increase the size of the dimensions here. And then this is how we can add more stuff. Then also, we can very easily add annotations for extra explanation if you want something specific. So in that sense, for example, what we can do is, let's say we want to add a comment right here. We can add it as a leader and we can say, let's say, I don't know, ventilation on top of oven. We can click enter. Then obviously we can move it. We can leave it like this. We can also increase this in size. For example, well, that is way too much. Let's do 0.67. Let's move this closer. Let's do this in another line. And then let's make this red if you want it to take more attention, or we can keep it something like this. So for example, this also has an arrow at the end. We can make it bigger. So for example, 2 is way too much, but let's do 0.6 or 0.2. And then let's go over here, add the stroke. We can also make this red as well if you want it to take more attention. All right, so now the other cool part, let's say you're actually done with your floor plan, you can add more collaborators in, for example, your stakeholders, anything like that. So in that instance, if let's say you want to add your contractor, another architect, interior designer, you can click share and you can invite them via email. And then once you invite them, they can join the same file. You can work on it at the same time while all being synced. And the other cool thing as well is that you can also present this for anyone to view it via I guess laptop, PC, phone as well. If you click share and go to presentation, you can just make this published and then you can open it and you can share it as a link without needing to install anything. Obviously, Rayon is all online in the cloud, and this is how it would look. Now, this doesn't look too bad at all. One thing that, for example, I would change is that maybe the lines of the wall or the stroke, I would want them a bit more visible. So in that sense, I would go over here and choose all of the interior walls and then all of the exterior walls as well. And then at the stroke, I would make the stroke a bit thicker. So let's say 7 mil. And then I can go ahead and share presentation. I can click update. And then once I click update, if I go back to our presentation tab and then reload it, that should change things as well. Now you can see we have a line visible there as well. And then obviously, if you want to export this, it is pretty easy. You can just select the frame that you want exported. So you can click on page, you click once and then select the diagonal. And then if you go here at pages, then you can just click on the 3 dots and you can export it as a PDF or a PNG. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about drawing floor plans or using Rayon, go ahead and watch the video right here.